The Sonic the Hedgehog movies were big. Mario was bigger. Marvel used to be the big kid on the block. But now, Marvel is going up against Sonic the Hedgehog. Next year, Avatar: The Way of Water has been moved out of the slot. And now Thunderbolts, one of the least well-known Marvel franchises, one of the least known properties, one of the underdog movies of all underdog movies out of the MCU, is taking on the blue blur, the Hedgehog. And after what we saw out of Mario, perhaps that's not a good idea. Perhaps Marvel should be more careful than going up against SEGA's mascot that might well win that battle. We'll explain why right now. And folks, we are back with another exciting video today. This one, an oddball video for sure. Who could have ever seen this kind of a topic coming until we reached this point? Well, if you like content like this, consider clicking the like button, share, subscribe, and you can stick it to the algorithms when you click it. We're talking about the notification bell. Today we are joined by Lorne Connor of ThatParkPlace.com, helping us out as we examine this very humorous topic, that being Marvel going up against Sonic the Hedgehog 3 now. And frankly, given what we're looking at, it is not at all a conclusion that Marvel will win. In fact, based on the trajectories that I'm seeing, based on what we're looking at, I think that Sonic has a very good chance of embarrassing the MCU. Lorne, have you seen the first two Sonic movies?
No, but I'm sure my son is familiar with them.
Yes, well, that would be the problem, wouldn't it? Because if kids are familiar, and they are, and if they love Mario, and they do, they might be inclined to go see the next Sonic movie even more than before Mario came out. In fact, what I'm saying here is that video game movies may be more popular than they've ever been before now, and Sonic 3 may be far bigger than the first two. And that should be concerning to Disney. It should be concerning to the MCU. Instead, they seem to be a little bit overly confident going head-to-head with Sonic now that they have vacated Avatar: The Way of Water from the 2024 release calendar date of December 20th. Now, we're going to talk about in just a moment all of the statistics, all of the things that are showing us this is a real problem for Disney, and they really should reconsider. Before we do, though, Lorne, walk us through for a moment why you think that video games are such a big thing in the culture right now, and you were telling me before the video even started that you think this is going to even bigger places for particular types of entertainment.
Yeah, absolutely. The game market has overtaken Hollywood in the last few years when it comes to incoming revenue. Now, there's giant budgets attached to any of your large AAA pieces of entertainment that are coming out. But we're also at the advent of an age where affordable VR is in people's hands. It's still kind of a niche thing, but we're coming up on our third generation Quest unit here. Apple's got their product that is very expensive, but potentially exciting. And you've also got AI at the forefront of technology today. Now, what I think is interesting about all of this is that in the old days, when we were talking about video game adaptations, it was almost kind of a forbidden or taboo subject. Nobody was
They couldn't win. You just couldn't win with a video game movie.
Nobody was proud of making one. You know, it was almost considered beneath you to be working on these kind of projects. But at a certain point, I think people realized that storytelling in games had graduated. There was actually some really entertaining pieces of fiction that were coming out there, and some people started taking it seriously and started trying to do respectful adaptations, and they've been rewarded for it at the box office. This is also happening with the advent of other portions of geek culture. I mean, take something like Dungeons and Dragons, which used to be incredibly embarrassing to talk about. Now you have celebrities that have their games that are massive must-watch kind of shows on YouTube. They rake in millions and millions of dollars on these things. Now, there's argument within the geek community as to whether or not these are real geeks or astroturfers or whatever, but whatever way you want to slice it, the public is interested and there's money there. And I think that as long as they keep doing respectful adaptations, they're going to be rewarded for it.
Absolutely. Now, Lauren, let's go ahead and take a look at some of these statistics that we've got, some of these trajectories. What is being the foundational beliefs that we have for how this is going to go? We're going to start with a weird one, which, well, fits this video because it's weird to even think that Sonic the Hedgehog is going to beat the MCU. But here we go. From March 2nd, 2023, by Brianna Bell out of Variety, Nielsen streaming top 10, Black Panther Wakanda Forever becomes third most streamed movie in one measurement week. Now, here's what it says. Marvel's Black Panther Wakanda Forever opened on Nielsen's streaming top 10 chart to record breaking numbers during the January 30th to February 5th viewing window, not so long ago. The film, which was added to the Disney Plus streaming service on February 1st following its theatrical run, quickly landed itself on Nielsen's most streamed movies with a measurement week chart with 2.269 billion viewing minutes. It falls just behind Glass Onion, A Knives Out Mystery, and Hocus Pocus 2. It's also Nielsen's top viewed title of the week. So that was pretty good, right? I mean, it's not the greatest thing in the world. It wasn't number one. And as these streaming services continue to add customers, you would expect more and more movies to break into those top 10, top 5, and even the top spot. It's pretty good overall. Here's the issue, though, Lauren. If we go to the current top 10 overall from Nielsen, the latest they have is May 15th through 21st, which just happens to feature the very first week that Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania hit Disney Plus. Well, how did it fare? Not so well. It debuts with 766 million minutes watched, and that adds up to be about 1/3 of Black Panther Wakanda Forever. And remember that Black Panther Wakanda Forever was a movie that we believe barely broke even in its theatrical run. In other words, it was not as big as the original Black Panther. And at the time that the original Black Panther came out, of course, Disney Plus did not have anything like what we're seeing now. I'm not even sure Disney Plus was existent at the time for it to make a debut, and therefore comparisons fail. However, we do have a comparison here between Black Panther Wakanda Forever and Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, and it's not good for the most recent Marvel movie. Now, why does that matter? It matters because while I suspect that Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 will do quite well on Disney Plus, it may be the only one that does well for quite a while. I don't suspect that the Marvels is going to light up the streaming service, just like I don't suspect it's going to light up the box office. And if Marvel is on a decline, and that's what it appears to be when you come in 1/3 of the prior Marvel movie on streaming, if Marvel is in the decline, then I would be very hesitant if I were Disney to put it at risk with Thunderbolts, one of the least known things I've ever heard about of Marvel, putting it up against Sonic the Hedgehog 3. I think it would be quite embarrassing, perhaps even damaging to Disney if it goes up against Sonic the Hedgehog 3 and is roundly defeated. Lauren, would it be bad for the company, or do you think they could take the hit and say, well, nobody knew what Thunderbolts was anyway?
I mean, they could try and pull that, but I think that the intelligentsia is aware of the fact that Marvel has been on a decline. So even if you don't know what the Thunderbolts is, you're going to hear about it in that context. So I don't think this is a wise move for them.
Yes, well, and we should not forget to also mention the next Captain America, which has been renamed now, trying to get away from worlds and orders, etc. But the Captain America movie that's coming up also not projected to do well, and Disney seems to be hiding it with its most recent slot. So there is much trepidation when it comes to Disney and the MCU. I really think they're making a mistake dropping this thing when they are. Now, let's take a look at when they're dropping it, just so everybody can see this. What do we have here now? Well, let's lay the groundwork on what happened. Due to the writer's strike, Disney needed to change the cadence of their content, as other studios are doing as well. In other words, the longer the writer's strike goes on, the more and more difficult it is to create any kind of content. And so these studios are now going to have to use less and less content and stretch it out over longer periods of time. So they've moved Avatar, the next one, Avatar 3, out 1 year past its original date. It was supposed to be coming out December 20th, 2024. It was supposed to be going up against Sonic the Hedgehog 3, and it probably would have roundly defeated Sonic the Hedgehog. In fact, I would not have been surprised if Paramount had moved Sonic to get it out of there. Now, Disney has replaced Avatar 3 with Thunderbolts for December 20th, 2024. And this is no small deal for Disney, and it's no small deal for Paramount. This is a huge head-to-head. Now, I doubt very many channels out there have covered this at all. In fact, I think that this is, we may take a hit on viewership because people just simply won't know, why the heck we're talking about Sonic here, because we're at the forefront bringing this. This is going to be a big deal if these two movies stay where they are. And here's why. December 20th, 2024 takes us into the Christmas holiday. That is the primo time to launch a movie. You want that, right? That's up there with Memorial Day weekend. It's huge. It is a big time release date. Sonic the Hedgehog 3 could set a record. It could try to get up there with Mario's numbers. It's kind of on its own when it comes to video game movies because Zelda is unlikely to come out soon because of the delay due to the writer's strike. So Sonic the Hedgehog 3 is poised to have a very good outcome due to its release. Thunderbolts now goes up against it, but Marvel can release almost any time and still do okay, you would think. I'm not sure that it's very wise for Disney to do this. I think they should go for early December and try at all costs to avoid this head-to-head. Maybe it's a 20% risk that Thunderbolts is defeated by Sonic the Hedgehog 3. Maybe it's 50%. I don't know what the chances are. With each new Disney film that comes out and fails miserably, the chances get worse and worse. But all I can tell you is that it is going to be very ugly for Disney if Marvel cannot beat Sonic the Hedgehog 3, and the worse that it is defeated by Sonic the Hedgehog 3 potentially, the worse it becomes for Disney and for those stockholders to begin to look and say, that's an objective data point that says things are not okay. Lauren, have you ever heard of Thunderbolts before?
I never read the comics around them. I am familiar with them in passing from hearing other people talk about them. The main thing that I see is interesting and also potentially a trouble point in the movie is that Thunderbolt Ross, who was the general in the previous Marvel movies, was played by William Hurt, who tragically passed away. So you have a curiosity from the audience, I think, of seeing Harrison Ford playing Red Hulk, which seems like odd casting, but you may get some butts and seats for curiosity. Yes. But you're also going to be dealing with the fact that there may be confusion among people in the audience who either don't remember Thunderbolt Ross from the earlier movies, or if they do, wonder what happened to William Hurt if they don't know that he passed away. So I think that also acts as something that may not play well for the picture. It all depends on how they market this thing.
I think it's a very interesting head-to-head battle. I think, now, perhaps I'm wrong, but I think that this could be one of the biggest situations to expose Marvel and Disney in terms of their weakness. We are looking at a situation, of course, where we go until Deadpool, which has now been moved up, and frankly, I think because of this issue, where we could go all the way throughout this entire year and into next year until Deadpool 3 before we see Marvel make a profit on a movie. We think Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 will break even, but making any kind of significant profit, less likely. And so not making a major profit, that's one thing. Being roundly defeated by Sega's mascot, totally different, I think.
Can I throw a theoretical at you?
Well, sure you can.
Because I'm not real familiar with the Thunderbolts.
Nobody is, Lauren. Nobody is.
Who's directing this movie? Do we know?
I do not know the director for Thunderbolts. We can look it up.
So let's play devil's advocate here. What if they're in such an oddball position with this movie?
Jake Schreier is the director for Thunderbolts.
Don't know him. So what if we're in a position that could be like Guardians of the Galaxy 1, where
that's what Marvel would like.
Do you think that there's any possibility that they have such a crazy cast and or concept that maybe it gives them somewhat of a reboot? Is there any way you think they can pull that off?
If this were earlier in the MCU's lifespan, I would be more optimistic. The longer that we go into this multiverse where things continue to get weirder and stranger and more esoteric, the more I worry that that's not likely. Is that fair?
Sure, but do we know that they're going to stick with the multiverse storyline now, given some of the other drama that's been going on in the MCU? Is this a pivot
Well,
for them?
actually, we have some good what we believe that that's what they're going to do. Of course, the writer's strike has paused everything. But when they reshuffled these movies, that's a great question, Lauren. When they reshuffled, one of the important things that we did take note of is that the Kang, whatever the Kang movie is they have, that is still scheduled to come out. Now, I believe that is scheduled for 2027, I think. But it is still scheduled. Disney still put it out on the roster, which means that whether that goes to stay with Jonathan Majors or whether that goes to somebody else, apparently they are sticking with this multiverse saga. I don't see how they could get away. I don't know how they could stay with Kang without doing so.
Okay, so the Kang movie, and I haven't followed this very closely, so you'll probably know better than I would. Is that Kang movie Secret Wars with Kang replacing the Beyonder, or is that something separate from Secret Wars?
I believe it's different than Secret Wars or Secret
Oh,
Invasion.
oh, okay.
Now,
All right.
here's an interesting thing, Lauren. When the original Sonic the Hedgehog came out, the original movie, it went up against Harley Quinn and a very long titled movie that was shortened thereafter. Now, that made fans of that franchise very mad when Sonic the Hedgehog defeated it. I think that once people catch on, and perhaps after they watch this video, I think that people are going to begin to rally. People who don't really care even about Sonic the Hedgehog, but just people who want to see Marvel take it to the chin. I think people are going to rally around Sonic the Hedgehog 3, and try to get it across the line to beat Marvel. It's going to be fascinating. All right, Lauren,
Yeah.
when we did the pro show, and folks, if you're watching this video during its debut day, the pro show was yesterday, and we had all kinds of breaking news. The big news was about CFO, that's Chief Financial Officer of the Walt Disney Company, Christine McCarthy, stepping down due to health issues. And by the way, folks, we're being very careful in our reporting of that issue. Some channels have not been so careful, and we really recommend that everybody be careful with this because, sure, maybe we're just being gullible and maybe there's no health issue at all, but we should err on the side of caution. We have reason to believe that this is legitimate, and we do not wish poorly for anybody when it comes to health. We may disagree with some of the decisions that Christine McCarthy made. We may disagree vehemently, but we do not take joy in the suffering or the illness of others, period. But because of all that breaking news, we were unable to get to some of our member chats. And so, Lauren, as we wound up this video, let's take a look at some of those member chats that we had, and we'll give our thoughts on it real quick. All right, from Joe Farrell, this says, as Disney continues to fall deeper and deeper from its own hubris, I think it's time for a Bakshi resurgence. Granted, at 84, it'd have to be more of a mantle transfer. I get it, Victoria Alonso. Seriously, though, I look forward to some great artists filling the growing hole left by Disney in the coming years. And I agree with that. I think that the competitors will rise and fill in the gaps. Big Sarah
Yeah.
says, keep up the great work. Go ahead, Lauren.
No, I was just going to say that people are always going to crave good storytelling, and so in the wake of a collapse like what we're seeing, someone's definitely going to fill the void. It's just going to take some time for somebody to realize, hey, this is making money over here.
You got it. Vic Sarah says, keep up the great work. Looking forward to an NCU Bayonetta announcement. Please. Realistically, how likely are we to get a decent and reasonably mature Metroid or similar IP in film given current studios? It may be easier as animation, perhaps, but I don't really see Illumination going even T for teen on some of this. Lauren, what do you think? Might we see Bayonetta, and do you think we might get a more mature Metroid?
I don't think to start with. I think that Vixaris is right on the money here in that they're just getting this thing started. And right now, they're probably going to stay with the younger crowd friendly because that gets both. You're guaranteed at least two theater tickets being sold, one for the child and at least one adult. But if they continue to grow this universe, then I could see them branching out. Now, the question for me would be, if you want to go more mature, you could do animation, but I think you would want something live action, and I don't know that Illumination is touching that. So I don't know how they go in that direction. What do you think?
Well, I think Nintendo is keen on this being available to the largest audience possible and fitting it into sort of the maturity level of the games. So Bayonetta, I think, is separate from Nintendo. I don't know how that will work if we ever get to that point. It might be more mature. But Metroid, no, I think Metroid is going to be made perhaps at the PG level and marketed perhaps with seriousness. It's not to say that you have to make it be silly or goofy, but I think looking for it to be overly violent, profane, or feature anything that would get it to PG-13, probably not. All right, let's go to Tommy Tables, frequent guest here on the channel, and also Tommy has been interviewing members for our Member Spotlight series. That's member-exclusive content. It's been fantastic watching him do that. He asks, is it possible that Disney went with the new Little Mermaid design because they truly thought the movie would be a hit and can't change it at this point? Tommy, I do think that is the case. You watched the video, I can tell, where we discussed that this had to have been completed prior to the writer's strike, which would put it at a date before the movie came out and became a box office disappointment. And so I think they truly believed they had a hit on their hands. They went ahead and greenlit this show. The writing is complete on it. It's headed over to the studios to do the CGI. And I also think that it is there to satisfy their ESG spreadsheets. They need to reach those quotas, and this is one way to do it. Of course, as for those of you who don't know, the new Disney Junior preschool show takes Ariel and continues with the skin coloring swap away from the animated original to the live action remake, redoes the design completely, and gives us the original animated characters back, other than Ariel, all looking like their original animated selves. It's very strange. Lauren, any thoughts on that one?
I'd just say anything's possible. It's like I will give them the benefit of the doubt and say that they thought that it was going to be a hit, but I guess it depends at what point are you asking did they think it would be a hit? Are we talking about before or after the CGI was complete? So I'll give them the benefit of the doubt, but I don't think it worked out for them.
Had they heard scuttlebutt, things would have been scuttled for sure.
Yeah.
Space Dave 2000 asks, at what point did Disney actually lose its magic? Back in 2013, when my family first attended the parks, we were fascinated and excited. It was expensive, yes, but it felt reasonable based on what you were getting. Fast Pass, parking, dining, Magical Express, etc. However, as the years went on, the prices spiked, the extras went through the roof or were removed, and the magic began to fade as rides were removed. Well, Space Dave, I see that you're talking specifically about Walt Disney World, and my answer on that, I think, in my opinion, the magic left Walt Disney World, although there are still some magical things about the parks. They're the legacy holdovers of Walt himself and the people who loved those parks into existence and designed them with such care and attention. But I think that the magic largely left the day that the Fast Pass system became no longer free, because that's really the first time that guests began to feel as if they were less valued than before. It's really hard to take something that was an ingenious perk, something that put the parks ahead of every other theme park in the world, and other theme parks were attempting to mirror Disney, but to no avail. They couldn't match that free service that all guests received. When that switched into a pay-to-play or pay-to-ride system, I think that diminished the magic at Disney. All right, let's go to this next question. And then, Lauren, this looks like one specifically for you. Indie Phantom says, it is getting very real for Disney. Some of the YouTube shills were having trouble feigning praise for Indy 5. The best they got is it's better than Crystal Skull. Lauren, are you going to go see Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny in theaters?
I'm not. This is going to be the first time that I can. It's. I never would have imagined that you would tell me there's going to be an Indiana Jones movie in theaters that I'm not going to go see. Yeah, but I'm not going to go see this. I'm sure that I will see it at some point after release, but I'm not going to reward them with a movie ticket.
Now, I don't know if you saw this either. Kathleen Kennedy was on stage. Echo Base Network did a fantastic job of highlighting this. She was on stage. She thought that she was going to receive accolades at one point, and instead the accolades went to John Williams, and she was quite upset with the situation. Lauren, one of the best well-received videos we've ever done was the one recently where you and I sat down and talked about what's missing, why Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny seems to have missed the mark. And I'm just curious, what do you hope to see on the horizon out of movies as we go forward? Clearly, this is not it.
Well, I think I'd like to see us get back to something that would be more akin to classic movie making. I think that there's a bit of a hangover right now on comic book movies and anything that has overdone CGI. So there's two eras that I'd kind of like to get back to if we could. Something like the 40s and 50s era, where you might have things like screwball comedies or more grounded pictures that don't have necessarily a lot of action, or certainly nothing that would be picked out by the audience as CGI. But I'd also like to see something more in the style of, say, 70s movies, when you started having big muscle car chases, noir pictures, private eyes, things like that. Something that gets more down to snappy dialogue and fully three-dimensional characters. I think that's what's really lacking in a lot of modern entertainment, is that we're just getting cardboard cutouts now, and they don't stick in the audience's mind.
I agree. I think in the biggest movies, sometimes these directors who get their one shot at having these giant budgets and CGI, they go for it. And as a result, they sometimes get very lazy when it comes to the character development and for making sure they tie up all those other loose ends. Maybe it's just too big a project. Reply By says, imagine a remake that Simba was swapped to a tiger, Mufasa swapped to a liger, and I'll stop before I get myself in trouble. It just wouldn't make sense. Reply By. Good job. Slade Wilson says, is it time to say Jonas is a prude yet? Oh my gosh, poor Jonas. Jonas gets the short end of the stick sometimes because he has to be the one who says no Pro or no Lorne or no Valiant. We have to be responsible, but we love Jonas as well. All right, Desade says, Disney is getting more and more desperate, it seems. In the past 2 weeks, my warehouse started to receive Diet and Zero Coke fridge packs, heavily promoting Disney. Where did they get the money for all of this? Well, the funny thing about that is that's part of the partner programs, where when they prepare to market some of these films, sometimes their partners will go ahead and market it for them, believing that the excitement and hype of those films, shows, etc., will sell the product on their own. And so that's a big part of what's going on. Man of WDW says, I hope you all enjoyed Renegade's video of Spielberg thanking everyone but KK. I know I did, LOL, and dropped the 3 Kathleen Kennedy crying emojis, which our members voted on. And that's referring, Lauren, back to that same thing I was telling you about out of Echo Base Network. Folks, if you haven't seen it yet, make sure you do. Olaf Van Ness says, wonder how long people are willing to wait for Wokeywood to bring back quality shows after the writer's strike and realization that focus on their own streaming services isn't as profitable as they expected. Most streaming services are eating their own. Only one still strong is Netflix. Even Viaplay, Scandinavian, increased subcost with a 4 to 6 euros due to loss of ad revenue and subscribers, as gas, electricity, and inflation have increased severely in Western Europe. So has streaming. Lauren, how long do you think we're going to go with these streaming services before we consolidate greatly? I think we're starting to see Paramount Plus wavering, starting to see Max, of course, trying to grab up all of these other services and put them together. I really don't think people can keep up with all the services we've had.
I don't think they've got any more than a year or a year and a half. Eventually, reality is going to sink in and they're going to realize we need to restore profits to our companies. And that means we're going to have to license our content back out to other providers, or we're going to have to do physical media. Please, let's go back to physical media, or ideally both.
Yes. Well, we'll see what happens. I think at the very least, we're going to see massive consolidations of these streaming platforms into a few. And that tends to be the norm when we see various markets mature. Descripto asks if we have any thoughts on the recent The Wrap article about the Zelda animated movie from Illumination. And all I can tell you, Descripto, is we had it first. We had it 4, 5, 6 months before the trades had it. And we want to say a giant thank you to our source who helped us do that. We had a second source that came on board later, but it was very helpful for that source to come forward to put their job on the line a little bit to let us know that that was happening. And so we want to say a thank you to all of our sources. We also, folks, want to give a belated birthday, happy birthday to Larry out there. Larry, if you are watching, we just want to say that we are so happy that you are here sharing this little blue marble with us, and it's a better place because of it. Lauren, you had a thought?
Yeah, just on that last comment, if I could. I think that article was talking about Chris actually denying that a Zelda movie is in production. Did you see that today?
Well, so I had not seen that article specifically, but I'll say this. It would be true that a Zelda movie is not in production. It would be true because nothing's in production because of the writer's strike. Had it finished the writing, then it would not be delayed. And if it were not, but because it's delayed, that means that it's not in production. So I hope that makes sense. It cannot be in production and be delayed due to the writer's strike. It simply can't exist. I would also say that there's been enough reporting around this. We've had enough sources that I'm very, very confident that the Zelda movie is on the way. But I would not be surprised if various entities don't really want us to know that for sure yet. And so they're probably going to put out statements and say, it's not in production, which technically it's not. But that's really a huge technicality because of the writer's strike. But I don't blame companies for wanting to keep it secret as long as they can. They want to announce it to great fanfare. So anyway, Lauren, any final thoughts on all the topics we've covered today? Lots of stuff about video games.
No, I guess the only thing that I would say is that I am excited about the fact that we are at least getting what are trying to be faithful adaptations of video games. I'm a huge video game enthusiast. I'm very excited about a number of games coming down the pike, and I think that is where entertainment is going to be pushing more and more. So I think that's a positive thing, and hopefully that's something that pushes Hollywood to get its act together.
Absolutely, and nothing would be better than Hollywood finally getting its act together. Join the rest of us, Hollywood. Act like a bunch of normal people. You can still create all kinds of creative content. You just got to get a little more moral. But hey, you can do it. All right, folks, if you like content like this, consider clicking the like button, share, subscribe, and you can stick it to the algorithms when you click it. We're talking about that notification bell. The conversation here has come to a close, but it begins now for all of you. Drop a comment down below and let us know what you think. The human mind is a terrible thing to waste. It's one of the most amazing things in the universe. Well, you have one, and we care about what's in it. So tell us your thoughts. And folks, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, keep learning, keep growing, and keep having fun.
Say it ain't so. This just in. Disney lost money on another movie. Why, that can't be. I thought that John Lasseter fella over at Pixar was cranking out the latest hits, and Marvel was unstoppable, and Disney princesses were a thing, and Star Wars was a multi-billion-dollar money-making franchise.
I overheard you talking about Disney, and wanted to let you know you're really behind the ball. If you were getting great articles from thatparkplace.com and subscribe to WDW Pro's YouTube channel, you'd actually be ahead of the culture curve and have entertainment explained.